Buckle up, America. The economic storm is brewing. The signs are all around us, and it's time to take notice. We can see that things are going terribly wrong every time we go grocery shopping or fill our tank. Prices are skyrocketing, and basic necessities are becoming harder to afford. Our monthly bills are taking a larger share of our pay, but officials insist that inflation is subsiding. Yet the reality for most families is quite different. They may be under that impression because many corporations have been reporting record profits, but most people are deeply struggling. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening. Over the past 30 days, we've received troubling news, and economists are warning that the outlook for the rest of 2024 is very bleak. The stock market is volatile, and uncertainty is the new norm. In today's video, we're going to expose 15 signs that the United States economy is in far worse shape than anyone has thought. Stay tuned as we delve into the details and uncover the truth behind the numbers. The delinquency domino effect, loan defaults on the rise, and it's a worrying trend. Let's start with a metric that should make everyone uneasy: loan delinquencies. These numbers are climbing at an alarming rate. Across the board, from credit cards to auto loans, the struggle is real. Americans are finding it increasingly difficult to keep up with their mounting debt. It's not just a few isolated incidents, it's a pattern, a trend that speaks to a much larger issue: a growing inability for everyday Americans to manage their finances effectively. Wages have remained stagnant, while the cost of everything, from groceries to housing, has skyrocketed. People are being squeezed from every direction, and something has to give. The financial pressure is immense. This isn't just bad news for individual borrowers, it has a ripple effect throughout the entire economy, affecting everyone. When people can't pay their loans, banks lose money, which impacts their ability to lend. This, in turn, slows down economic activity, leading to job losses, business closures, and a more fragile economy overall. The crumbling foundation. The commercial real estate crisis deepens. Those vacant storefronts are about to multiply faster than a rabbit in springtime. Commercial real estate relies heavily on borrowed money, and with interest rates shooting up, those loans are becoming more expensive to service. Add to that the fact that many businesses are still operating remotely, leaving office spaces emptier than a politician's promise. Farewell to your local branch. The bank exodus begins. It's a trend that's sweeping across the nation, leaving many to wonder what the future holds for traditional banking. You know what I'm talking about. Those branch closing signs popping up more frequently than campaign promises during election season. It's becoming an all too common sight in our neighborhoods. But this time, it's not just about moving a few blocks over. It's a full-blown exodus. Entire communities are being left without a single branch in sight. Banks will tell you it's all about efficiency, about embracing the digital age and meeting customers where they are. They argue that online banking is the future, and they're just keeping up with the times. Online banking is undeniably convenient, but this mass closure of bank branches, particularly in rural and low-income neighborhoods, is leaving a lot of people behind. These areas often lack reliable internet access, making online banking a challenge. It's creating banking deserts, where access to essential financial services is limited or non-existent. These banking deserts are growing, and the impact is far-reaching. This disproportionately affects vulnerable communities, pushing them further away from economic opportunity. Without access to basic banking services, these communities face significant barriers to financial stability and growth. Remember when we talked about those loan defaults having a ripple effect? Well, buckle up, because it's about to hit the job market like a Category 5 hurricane. Just this week, another major company, a logistics giant, went belly up. Thousands of workers are now facing unemployment. From tech startups to retail giants, companies across all sectors are announcing layoffs. These job losses don't exist in a vacuum. They have a domino effect of their own. When people lose their jobs, they have less money to spend, which hurts businesses and leads to more layoffs. Okay, folks, let's talk about something close to our stomachs: the restaurant industry. The state of the restaurant industry is a canary in the coal mine for the broader economy. Even beloved chains like Hooters are closing locations at an alarming rate. Restaurants operate on razor-thin margins, and they're getting squeezed from all sides. Soaring food costs, rising labor costs, and dwindling consumer spending are creating a perfect storm. Many restaurants simply can't weather this downturn. Remember the thrill of the hunt? The joy of finding the perfect item at a bargain price? Well, those days might be coming to an end. The retail apocalypse is no longer a distant threat. It's our current reality. Major retail chains, even those once considered untouchable, are filing for bankruptcy and shuttering stores. Rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and a shift towards online shopping are driving this meltdown. There's also a fundamental shift in consumer behavior at play here. Chapter 7. The price is wrong. The cost of living continues to soar. The cost of living is skyrocketing faster than a Bezos rocket, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. Gas prices are enough to give you a panic attack at the pump. Electricity bills are higher than a giraffe's blood pressure. This relentless rise in prices is putting an unbearable strain on household budgets, forcing families to make impossible choices. Chapter 8. Locked out. The housing market becomes increasingly unaffordable. Mortgage rates are higher than Snoop Dogg at a Cypress Hill concert, making homeownership about as attainable as a private island in the Bahamas. Rents are skyrocketing, driven by increased demand, limited supply, and high mortgage rates. Millions of Americans are finding themselves priced out of the housing market. They're forced to choose between living in cramped, overpriced apartments or moving to areas with a lower cost of living. Chapter 9. A city in crisis. Homelessness surges in the Windy City. Chicago is facing a growing crisis homelessness. Over the past year, the homeless population in Chicago has more than tripled. The streets of this once booming metropolis are now home to a growing number of individuals and families. A lack of affordable housing, rising poverty rates, mental health issues, and substance abuse are driving this surge. Remember retirement? That mythical land of leisure? Well, for millions of Americans, that dream is quickly fading. Today's seniors are facing dwindling savings, rising healthcare costs, and a social security system on the brink of insolvency. Longer lifespans, inadequate savings rates, and a volatile stock market are driving this retirement crisis. Now, you might be thinking, John, this all sounds pretty dire, but surely someone out there must be doing well, right? And you'd be right. A small minority of Americans, let's call them the economic elite, are still clinging to the belief that everything is coming up roses. They point to a booming stock market, record corporate profits, and low unemployment rates. But these indicators mask a much harsher reality for the vast majority of Americans who are struggling to make ends meet. Now let's talk about consumer confidence. It's basically a fancy way of measuring how optimistic people feel about the economy. Consumer confidence just took a nosedive off a cliff, landing somewhere in the vicinity of existential dread. It's the lowest it's been in months, and it's not hard to see why. With inflation soaring, interest rates rising, and a recession looming, people are understandably nervous about the future. Remember when we talked about consumer confidence taking a nosedive? Well, it turns out things were even worse than we initially thought. Those consumer confidence readings we were all obsessing over? Yeah, those have been revised down. This downward revision in consumer confidence has much broader implications for the economy. It suggests that consumers were even more pessimistic than we realized, which could further dampen spending and economic growth. Now, let's delve into the world of economic indicators. The Dallas Fed Services Index has been flashing red for months, signaling a prolonged contraction in the services sector. The index has been mired in negative territory for over 2 years. This indicates that the services sector, which accounts for a significant portion of the U.S. economy, is struggling to gain traction. Let's talk about the backbone of the American economy: small businesses. Those plucky entrepreneurs, the risk takers, the dreamers who pour their hearts and souls into building something from the ground up. But right now, those small businesses are teetering on the brink of disaster. Crushed by inflation, supply chain disruptions, and a shortage of workers, many are struggling to keep their doors open. If we don't do something to support these small businesses, the consequences will be dire. Though officials say the economy is booming right now, the cold, hard numbers seem to contradict the endless stream of propaganda. From soaring inflation and a collapsing housing market to mass layoffs and a growing retirement crisis, The warning signs are everywhere. It's time to face economic reality and demand better from our leaders. We need policies that prioritize working families, support small businesses, and create a more equitable and sustainable economy for all Americans. Thank you for watching.